we go. Hey, how
Live.
you doing?
Good. How are you?
Doing great. Doing great.
Good.
So good to see you both.
Absolutely.
Literally, I if you didn't tell me that you were mother and daughter, I would talk about you as sisters.
Well,
So
come on. Well, come on. You know, when Donna out, she give me a little age and things. When I got I'm gonna be like, oh, wait a minute. But thank you.
I
You're
love it. I love it. Thank you all for being with us today and being with me. I'm so excited about this new book and just it's an awesome opportunity to be able to do an audiobook that really not only champions the women in my life, my mother and my grandmother and my great aunts, but my mother's voice and five of my great aunts that are still alive are featured in the book.
amazing.
The youngest is Aunt Nuna. Excuse me, the youngest is Aunt Sandra, who's 76, and the oldest is Aunt Nuna, who's 96.
Uh,
And to be able to do a book to celebrate women, Black women, and the contributions of Black women, as a Black man, it was an honor to do it. And I'm honored to be able to sit down with, two dynamic Black women who are changing the culture for better. So I want to just start with you, Choice, right? I want to start with you. Talk to me about how have you been inspired by your mother to do what you're doing? Because to be an influencer and to grow in your voice and grow in your platform, how much inspiration did you take from mom? Or did you say, okay, mom's doing that and I'm gonna go over here?
Um, I would say a lot of inspiration. Most of my inspiration has come from my mom. My mom has always taught me throughout my whole life perseverance. That's like her biggest thing. Keep trying, keep trying. And then, of course, your path might change, but you always try your best and you keep going. You don't let anything stop you. Um, and also, the one thing that she taught me was no backup plans. You always go
Oh,
for your dream,
love that.
what you want to do, what makes you happiest, and that's always what she's done. Well, not always, but that's another way that I learned through her. But
Mhm.
that's what she's taught me through just her living, and then also her speaking that to me. So yeah,
Mm. Wow, I love that. So no backup plan.
yeah,
yes,
I believe in the plan, right?
Mm.
When I believe when God gives you something, when He gives you a vision and a dream, it's there
Mhm.
for a reason. And if you think about it more than twice in a day, you're supposed to do something with it. So while you may have other things that you may have to do in
Yeah.
pursuit of that, you never get confused with thinking that those things are the backup plan, right? You're still
Mm.
focused on the goal. You may have to work a job or do something else while pursuing that or on
Yeah.
your way to that, but it still should be your only plan.
I love that because so often, I know growing up, everybody was all about, well, what's your plan B?
Yep, yep.
And I,
Same thing. Yep.
right? It's like my grandfather worked for UPS. He
Yep.
worked for UPS for, oh man, maybe 30 years.
Oh wow.
And he always would talk to us about, oh, you got to get a job with benefits, and Devon, you trying to pursue this Hollywood dream, how you know it's going to work out?
Yep.
So I love that idea of not having, a backup plan. One of the things that came to mind, I have a chapter in the book, which is about playing the game. So this book, basically, it starts with me talking about the death of my father. And
Mhm.
my father died when I was 9 years old. He died of a heart attack when he was 36 years old. And he left me and my two brothers, my older brother and younger brother, to be raised by my mother. And I start this audiobook bringing the listener into the scene at the morgue. And
Mhm.
there's my father, laid on the table. And my mother says, go kiss your father goodbye. And so me and my brothers, we go over and we kiss our father on the forehead. And I talk about you don't really know, what death is until you feel the cold of death. And so I bring that up because coming out of that moment, my mother was faced with a dilemma. What am I going to do? How am I going to raise these three boys? How am I going to do that? And so she brought in the help of my grandmother and my grandmother's seven sisters to really surround us, emotionally, spiritually, practically, financially, in some ways, to really help ensure that we would grow up strong. One of the reasons why I'm bringing this up is I'm curious to get you all's point of view on this. One of the things that they taught us growing up was as Black men, how to succeed in a predominantly white world.
Mhm.
How much of that, Tabitha, I'll start with you, how much of that, because you have been so successful in navigating so many different spaces that a lot of times people of color don't get access to. How much of that, being cognizant of that, have you been, and how much of that have you talked to Choice about? Or is it just like, hey, you know what? We're both two strong women and doesn't matter race, and we're just going to pursue our careers? Or do you factor that in any way?
Well, I'm from the South, right? And so it was, I understand now as an adult that my mother and father, more so my grandparents, and those before them, they had a different mentality for survival and to
Mhm.
be accepted, right? And I remember learning very early, before I was old enough to be working, right? Just being a child going to school. But I remember very early watching my mama change her voice depending on who she was talking to, right? We were
Like code switch.
code switching.
Wow. Okay.
And I thought that's what we had to do to be accepted or to get things done, right?
Mm.
And so I went on to speak differently, of course, at school when I'm, talking to my teachers who are white. When I got jobs, I made sure that I spoke in a way that I could survive and be accepted. And I continued that process for over 20 plus years because that's what I thought we had to do. But what I realized in all of that, while my parents really did teach me how, they always said it's going to be harder for us because you are, you're a black woman,
Right.
you're a young black lady. My daddy used to tell me, and so you got to work a little bit extra harder because the world wasn't built for us equally.
Mm.
And I did. So I have always been a very hard worker. When I want to do something, honey, I'm going to do it 200%.
Me
Okay.
too.
And so I would tell Choice that even in school, I would say, things are, it's not easy for you. You got to work a little bit harder. It's unfortunate, but this is the truth. But I realized about myself that the code switching was not freedom,
Mm.
right?
Wow.
It also held me back further than it pushed me ahead. And so I made sure to tell her, you are enough just as you are.
Amen.
Right? I don't want her to do what I did, right? But the truth is the truth.
Yeah.
Things are different. I am in a space, especially in the food industry, as being a black woman who is vegan. When I first became a vegan, I didn't really know anybody who was vegan that looked like me, who was like the poster child for veganism, right? And I've said this many times. When I would think about veganism growing up, I used to think, honey, it was for white women who did yoga. That's my truth.
Right. That
Right.
was the branding. That was the
That
association.
was it. Like
For sure.
they in a cult or something. That's what I thought. And then as I became the representation for our community, where people started to see me and they said, oh, wow. But I would still go to different conferences and step in rooms that still nobody looked like me. What I realized is the power in showing up as Tab.
Yeah.
100% who I am was enough. And it also opened the doors for me. Well, listen, I didn't even know we was going to talk about this, but you see my shirt say freedom over code switching.
Oh, I didn't see it until you just sat up. I was only seeing the freedom.
Freedom over code switching.
Wow.
Because I realized that I was holding myself back. I was doing things to make everybody else comfortable.
Right.
But we are enough just as we are. And that's what I tell her all the time. She is way more free than I was at 20. And by the time she's my age, honey, Choice, she could take over the whole world, right? If her mind stays on that path of knowing that she's enough, knowing that it's not an even playing field, but still you being you is enough to be on the playing field.
I love that.